McCarthy essentially gives a speech about how America sucks. He says that all the countries in the world are beating our record at a bunch of different things, like technology, but most importantly, like we're not keeping our citizens safe. He would say that there's one reason that the country is failing, and that was because of communists. I know. And worse, communists have snuck their way into the American government. Gasparilla. I know, the audience was like, what? They were freaking out. Then McCarthy whips out a piece of paper, he waves it in the air, and he says, quote, "While I cannot take the time to name all the men in the State Department who have been named as members of the Communist Party, I have here in my hand a list of 205, end quote. Yeah, he's waving that like, look right here. Back then, when Americans heard the word communist, it was like hitting the panic button, and he knew that. And in the last few decades, several countries were thrown into chaos after their governments were overthrown by communist groups. So McCarthy said the only way to keep America safe was to get rid of these communists, right? He made it very clear that communists were gay people, so they became enemy number one. To him, the logic was simple. If you're gay, you can't be trusted, so therefore you must be a communist. That's what he's saying. That's not what I'm saying, okay? McCarthy said, quote, "Homosexuals must not be handling top secret material. The pervert is easy prey to the blackmailer," end quote. He believed the whole queer community would be easily blackmailed into giving up America's secrets, and they must be stopped. So people are hearing this and they're going crazy, especially the homophobes, because now it was like they had a government-sponsored reason to dislike and even hate the gay community, gay people. This speech brought McCarthy the attention that he craved. The press was hounding him for quotes, and his office phones were ringing off the hook. And honestly, McCarthy was like rock hard for this new celebrity status he had. And the story took over headlines in major American newspapers. McCarthy makes a list of like random people who worked in the government who he believed were potential communists. Then he hands this list off to his friends in the government. And then these friends begin to terrorize and destroy the queer community, all in the name of national security. And this was the beginning of the Lavender Scare. It was called the Lavender Scare because back then, homophobes used to call gay men lavender lads. On February 20th, 1950, McCarthy spoke to the Senate. And here's where he claimed to know of a, quote, case 14 and case 62, which honestly, I guess, was really smart. It made people think, oh my God, there must be at least 62 communists if there's a case 62. I don't know, he's just like making up numbers and shit, okay? McCarthy didn't use any specific names or details. He simply said that these case numbers were, quote, homosexuals. And he believed gay people would be converted to communism because, quote, practically every active communist is twisted mentally or physically in some way, end quote. Look, it wasn't making any goddamn sense, but he got the point across by being just very vague. No one was ever able to fact check McCarthy's list of names that he had because he was like, it's very top secret. LOL. You know, like you can't have this list. But I know what I'm talking about. But people were starting to doubt him. So McCarthy does something shady. He tells the press he has evidence that he's right about the whole gay communist thing. And he says that there is a secret report within the government. And that report says that there were 91 known homosexuals who were recently fired from their government jobs. And the American people were like, oh my God, proof, he's onto something. But here's the thing, McCarthy wasn't lying. There were 91 people fired from the government for being gay, and that actually happened 5 years earlier. McCarthy made it seem like this had just happened, like it was like yesterday, you know? He was using old data to get new headlines, all because he had one goal in mind: create a media frenzy. At this point, most Americans trust that McCarthy is keeping them safe. People were literally writing letters to McCarthy thanking him for taking care of the, quote, sex perversion problem in the government. He even started a new movement called McCarthyism. Yeah. McCarthyism is essentially when you're accused of being a communist who is not loyal to America. And once you've been accused, that's it. You're basically screwed. So if you're accused, you're taken from your home, and then you would have to testify under oath in front of government officials. Now, sometimes behind closed doors, sometimes in Congress. And you would have to answer questions about the most intimate parts of your life. Things about your sex life, your childhood, your finances. And the entire time you're testifying, you are completely terrified you're going to say something that makes you look like a communist, by accident. It's like, yes, sir, I signed a petition one time. I thought I was buying Girl Scout cookies, but I promise, I'm not a communist. No one's gonna believe you because you've already been labeled at that point. And the thing was, even if you were somehow proven innocent, the interrogators still wanted you to give names of people or things you thought were communists. It's just a never-ending, circle jerk. For example, McCarthy believed that many popular books in American libraries were actually secret communist textbooks. Oh yeah. In that case, the people McCarthy chose to blame were the librarians. So they would bring in these innocent librarians who were just trying, to get young people to read and force them to testify. This just all shows that McCarthy didn't read. It's sir, this is the Cat in the Hat. I don't know what that has to do with communism. But okay, really? Look, if the librarian was found innocent, they then had to throw another employee under the bus and make it seem like, they're the communists. They wanted names, and it's in that situation, you're gonna name names just so you can get out of it. So if anyone who was accused of being a communist didn't give them a name, that was essentially them admitting that they were a communist, right? It's so stupid. So they had to give them a name, even if that person wasn't a communist, and that was to prove their loyalty to America. It's just like the witch trials. Remember, everyone was just trying to protect their own ass, naming names just to get people off their back. You couldn't win. McCarthy keeps getting more and more popular. And this man isn't even the president, but people seem to trust him more. But then there's a little bump in the road for McCarthy when his personal life gets called into question.